from you guys. I want to take a little time and talk about the final project. And I just have it up on the screen here, and I'm just going to kind of read through each of the parts here. So, um, basically, the scenario is you're submitting lessons for a contest. That's kind of the overarching theme or problem that you're working toward, or project that you're working on. And so, the idea here is that you're going to develop a technology-infused lesson plan. Now, just one key note here on this first page here, please include this material. Again, I want to see that you're including all this here. Cover sheet with your name, title, lesson, grade level, and subject. Just tell me what you're doing at the get-go, so when I'm grading these, I can see what's going on right at the beginning. The second page here shows the point breakdown, and I'll go through each of these a little bit later. Main section there is going to be the analysis of learners. We've talked a little bit about that. The narrative overview is going to basically be your time to tell me what exactly the lesson is about. 3 should be pretty easy points. Just list the standards from each. Section 4 there is the learning objectives, which you've already had an assignment on, which you are getting feedback on. And 5 is going to be talking about the strategies that you'll be using, both from a presentation or teacher-centered side as well as the learner-centered side. And then the last section there is going to be a mock-up of the lesson, just kind of include any additional materials that you see fit. And you can see that the whole thing is worth 75 points. In terms of how I'm grading these, the point values are generally pretty easy to figure out here. But if I scroll back up here, both the strategies there, you have 4 sections there: choice, description, telling me what the technology is, and what the rationale is. So we're going to talk about what teaching strategies you're going to use at length, and then you're going to talk about how the technology integrates with that and the rationale for choosing that technology. And this is how these are going to be graded. So you look at, are we choosing the correct benchmarks here? Are they effectively integrated? Is the media effectively integrated, or is it just kind of a quick replacement? We've talked about that before, just the whole idea, not to beat a dead horse here, but the whole idea of a PowerPoint versus lecture with a whiteboard. There really is no integration there per se. Is the cognitive level task appropriate or age appropriate? Meaning that you're not going to be doing things that only high schoolers can do with a group of kindergartners. And then the last section there, you do need to discuss how the needs of diverse learners are met there. Now, this page is pretty important, because if you want full credit on your strategy sections there, and that's a good chunk there, that's almost half, 30 of the 75 points there. Go through the list here. In your descriptions and in your rationales, and when you're talking about each of those strategies, the teacher-generated strategies and the learner-generated strategies, do you cover all these things? Do you talk about the benchmarks? Do you talk about how it's effectively integrated? Do you talk about how it's appropriate? Do you talk about how you meet the needs of diverse learners? If you do that, you're setting yourself up for success. If you ignore this when you're writing up your lesson plan, you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, for the rest of the things, let's go through these step by step. The analysis of the learners. You can answer these as you see fit, and these are going to be tied to whatever content area you're aiming for here. So what are the fixed and variable characteristics of your target learners? Talk about these. Who are your learners? Specific entry competencies. What things do they know already, or what should they know? Both in general, as in like what should a 5th grader know, but also what should a 5th grader know in science, and also when they may have learned that material earlier. Don't assume that they all come in knowing the same stuff. So, and don't assume that I know either. My teaching areas have been very focused on high school and science. So you need to explain that to someone who doesn't fit that profile, who doesn't know what you're teaching per se, or really in depth. Learning styles. Keep in mind that this is kind of a touchy area here. Stay away from the visual kinesthetic learners, and more importantly, don't talk about how you're addressing those needs. That's not the point here in the analysis. The point of the analysis is to talk about your learners. So what things would I expect from a 5th grader in terms of how they learn? Don't address those specific little things, but would they be able to sit for a long period of time? Can I expect the same things out of a high school kid than I can out of a middle school kid, than I can out of an elementary student? No. So please talk about those things. What situations or what things allow them to learn well? The project narrative, tell me what you're doing. Give me an overview. You can say this lesson is part of a larger unit on whatever. So I'm teaching this specific topic within a broader context or unit. The standards, as I mentioned on a couple occasions, I can't tell you the magic number of standards. I will tell you that you need at least one content standard and one technology standard. I would probably aim for a little bit more, but again, that's going to vary, so I can't really say for sure. One other thing there, some disciplines kind of ignore the Michigan standards and use organizational standards or national standards, and feel free to do that if you see fit. The learning objectives, we talked about these already. You had a lesson on this, or an assignment on this, so keep in mind that there were so many points. Make sure you have 3 objectives and they all have A, B, C, D criteria. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, the strategies. You're going to need at least one teacher-centered strategy and one learner-centered strategy. Again, you want a free point here? Tell me what you're actually doing here. Talk about what you're doing in greater detail. Talk about what media or technology you'll be using, and then talk about why. And the thing about why and the rationale is to tie it back to several things. First, tie it back to the content standard. Second, tie it back to your objective. Third, and probably most importantly, tie it back to your learner analysis. Why is this good for your particular set of learners? You spend time focusing on knowing your learners, so tell me why this is good for your learners, and that should help you out. And then the last section here, where it says mock-up, just include any additional files or URLs. So if you have a handout, you can include it. If you have a link or a specific site that students are going to go to, please include that so I can look over that. And that's going to be more of the whether or not this is appropriate for that age group, or you vetted it for quality. Don't send me to Joe's biology website when we don't even know who Joe is. Okay? Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me on this, or post a question on the discussion board, and I'll share those answers with everybody. But pretty straightforward lesson plan here. Your focus is, how do I effectively integrate technology in this? And it goes through more of an instructional design process where you're identifying your learners, you're developing objectives based on standards, and then you're talking about which strategies you use and clarifying why, and then doing a mock-up or a run-up of the lesson. Again, most instructional design strategies include the evaluation of how it went. Obviously, given where this course is, you cannot do that, but you might want to throw that in there just as an additional thought if you actually use this lesson. How would I go about assessing whether or not they've met the objectives, and how would you go about reviewing the lesson in general? How would you reflect on it when you are finished? Again, if you have any questions, let me know, and good luck.